Today's guest is a powerhouse in the world of leadership and trust. Scott Carley, known as the Change Energizer, has spent years transforming organizations by tackling one of the most overlooked drivers of success: trust. He's the author of Can I Trust You? He's a keynote speaker and the creator of the Trust Credit Score, a revolutionary framework helping leaders and teams rebuild credibility, boost cooperation, and unlock elite performance. If you're building a business, leading a team, or trying to just level up your influence, this episode is a must listen. Let's welcome my guest, Scott Carley, to the show. Scott, I've been excited for this one. You've worked with teams all across the country, and your message of trust really hits home for a lot of business owners out there. You've literally written the book on trust titled, Can I Trust You? Right? So I'm really curious. What drives your work into trust?
Trust is just the basis for everything. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. And I heard that introduced to me a long time ago, and it made a lot of sense. And the more I got into business and the more I did my work, it became really clear how important that is. We do business with people we know. We have to know you. It's helpful if we like you. No, we have to trust you. We have to trust that you can deliver on what you say you can deliver on, and that I can feel calm and secure about doing business with you. So that's it.
What happens when there is no trust?
Well, there's no such thing as no trust. There is either trust toward the wrong thing or trust towards the right thing. And trust, I put it on a gradient on a scale of 1 to 10. How much do you trust in one of these 5 areas? So usually it's pretty low trust. But to say that there's no trust, that would only happen if we had never met before. But even then, your body language, your appearance, your presence when you walk in the door creates or diminishes a certain amount of confidence I have in connecting with you.
So you're clearly very passionate about this, and you've written the book. What led to this? What is this something that you had always kind of been interested in and wanted to learn a little bit more about and kind of been practicing in? Went on to write the book, but give us a little bit of the backstory. What led to this for you, that you've dedicated the time and the energy and the effort and the passion here behind building trust and the framework behind building trust in a conversation, in a business relationship, things like that?
Yeah, well, that is a big question, and I get asked it a lot. So how did you get into this? And it's why my story is in the book, because when you start reading the book, then you understand why I wrote it. So all of my formal training is in theology. When I got out of high school, I went to Bible college and in Houston, a private college in Houston, and a private college in California. And then I became a youth pastor in L.A., youth pastor in Central Louisiana. I married a girl from my home church, and we started evangelizing. That means traveling from church to church in our denomination, preaching the gospel. And before very long, it just became obvious that I had a gift about being able to help in leadership development, helping churches grow and double their size and attendance and all of that. And I did that for 10 years, 47 states. And then I became a pastor up in the panhandle of Texas, Lubbock. I was there for 10 years. And then my marriage had a train wreck. And when it did, I lost an enormous amount of trust from my colleagues, my peers in the ministry. And thankfully, somebody who still had a lot of trust in me in Central Louisiana had a mega church there, brought me in a position to let me rebuild trust and credibility. And I had to do that with my family, my kids, my ministry. And so I got a I got a front row seat, middle of the stadium lesson on what it means to have trust, to shatter trust, and have to rebuild it again. And I discovered I wasn't alone. There's a lot of people out there. Eventually, my marriage didn't work out, and I was in Austin. I didn't know anybody, and I'm starting a business. And so now the business that I'm doing is almost the same. I'm helping leaders of businesses and organizations to help them develop their leadership teams, their organizational structure, their priority management, and build their business. And that's where I learned that I have to earn trust with people a little bit at a time. And those little drops of trust turn into cups of trust, to gallons of trust, to towers of trust. So I had a lot of firsthand experience. And what happened, Tanner, was I read a lot of great books about it, but nobody really seemed to have a way to score trust. It was a gut feeling. And so in my reading, I just figured some of that out, and, a lot of authors helped me. But that's why I wrote The Trust Credit Score, or Can I Trust You, to help put a framework on what trust is and how to rebuild it. That's the short answer.
I love that. So how do you define trust? When you look at, the scoring trust, there's a number of things in there that you said that I want to really kind of tie into and dig into here. One of them is this whole, I had to go rebuild trust. And what does that look like? What does that feel like? What are some of the tactics that you've learned along the way? But maybe let's start with just a definition. What does trust mean to you?
Well, trust is the confidence people have in your character and your expertise. And it's based on your behavior. It's not based on what you say, but it's how they see you act in any situation. And they're watching mostly unconsciously. And that's part of what I found. When I've asked a lot of people about trust, what makes you trust them? I just have a feeling. Well, you can't do much with feelings, because feelings could be emotional. But anyway, there is some emotional content in that. But there are the confidence that people have in your character, your morals, your values, and in your expertise and what you can do. So that's what trust is all about. And if people trust you, things happen. People don't trust you, then they pull back.
So how do you build trust?
Well, I discovered, not by myself, but I discovered that there were what appeared to me to be 5 areas where trust is built. One is in body language, your appearance. And what's funny, Tanner, nobody wants to talk about that one. They say, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, don't judge them because they're heavy or skinny or tall or short or what color they are or what their accent. But we do. I mean, we don't judge necessarily. Maybe we do. I call it we score people. And people's presence, when they walk into a room, people feel that presence. If people are looking you in the eye, I go to a networking event and people are going, hey, man, how you doing? Oh, yeah, we were talking. Yeah. Oh, hey, how you doing? Then they're sending me a message. So anyway, that's the first one. The first one is body language. The second one is your motives and intentions. And, what's really going on here? What's your vibe? What's your intentions here? Are you gaming me? Are you really sincere? Are you transparent? And we pick that up. And people don't like to be manipulated. They don't like to be lied to. So that's the second one. The third one has to do with your values, your core values. If we don't have to agree on everything, but to go very far and very strong in a relationship, you have to share some similar core values. And I have to have confidence in your core values. You have to have confidence in mine. So I'm getting somewhere with this. The fourth one is your expertise. can you really do what you say you can do? Do you have any formal training on this? You wrote the book? That's fine. You wrote a book. You have some awards that you won. So, okay, you're an expert in something, a subject matter expert. And then the last one is your track record. Have you done anything? Show me what you've done. Oh, you did it once. Okay, well, what if you did it 10 times? What if you won 7 Super Bowls out of 21 years of experience? That's how you get to be a GOAT. And that's receipts. That's a track record. So how do you rebuild trust? You have to go to all 5 of those areas and be intentional about sending the right signals in your behavior about what you've done. How you show up, all that stuff.
I want to go back and hit on a couple of these here because I've got some questions that I think would be helpful for us to discuss a little bit for the audience. And if we go back to body language, and I find this really fascinating because it is the eye contact, how somebody has presence in a room, especially after COVID, and we do a lot more things virtually like this. How important is that body language appearance in a virtual format like this in comparison to in person? Is it similar? Is it different? What's kind of your take on virtual body language versus in person?
Yes. They're both really important, and on both of them, there are things that you can do. It's really funny. When COVID was over, and I'd been on these podcasts, or not podcasts, but virtual meetings, went to a conference and met some people. Wow, you are a lot taller than you look on virtual, on a Zoom call. That was important. But there were some other things. People who don't show up on camera, and maybe they're a group of 10 people, and I'm just not going to show up on camera, sends a bad message. It tells, the message it sends is, I don't want to connect with you. I'm doing other things. I'm distracted. That's one thing. Sometimes, like I bought a camera. My camera on this podcast is in the middle of my screen. So it really looks like I'm looking right at you. Well, I had to learn. As a matter of fact, I was president of the National Speakers Association in Austin when COVID hit. And we had a guy, Mike Barnes, who came in and taught us as speakers how to speak to a camera. Mm-hmm. And when you learn how to speak to a camera, then people feel like, wow, he's speaking to me. But if you're speaking over here, speaking down there, speaking over there, it doesn't send the same message.
I see it all the time. And it's one that I feel like I've had to learn a lot as well. Camera position, where do I put the screen so that I can convey the message that I want to? Not because I want to necessarily look a certain way, but there's a difference between the message and how it's conveyed when I'm looking over here at the screen over here and saying, yeah, Scott, we're going to have this conversation, versus, I'm actually looking at you and you can see parts of my hands and things like that within the frame. And having that same level of confidence that you would offline. A little bit of studying and things that I've done, seeing people on camera, they're just like doing things like this. And basically, I don't want to talk to you, which is like so interesting to me, but they won't do it in person. So it was fascinating when you mentioned body language and what that conveys. And I see it every single day, especially in a virtual environment.
Body language is 55% of your communication. How you sit, how you look, how you yawn, all of that, 55% of your communication.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up don't judge a book by its cover. We really try, especially in today's world, not to judge people, but unfortunately there's still just a level of first impression that happens, and it may not be an inherent I'm judging, as you had mentioned before, but there's still an impression that happens. I recall being on specifically a virtual call not that long ago, watching a bunch of different folks, group call, things like that, and there were some that just had this great presence. And they're sitting there, they're having the conversation, they're speaking with you, not at you. And then there's others that are just off, look like they're doing 10 other things. And it's like immediately, without doing anything, there's an impression there.
Disconnect.
And I have less trust of those individuals because of that. Now, that may be completely off base if I were to meet them, in the real world or something else like that. But it's a very fascinating component to pay attention to.
Yeah, sometimes people don't realize how they look. But my point in the trust credit scores, if you're trying to build trust, be intentional about how you look, what you wear, and you can, if you read in the book, I have a chapter about, well, yeah, but that wouldn't be me if I got all dressed up, if I did this or that. I get that. Yet at the same time, there are things that are not appropriate and things that are appropriate. So you wouldn't wear your pajamas to church service or to a banquet somewhere. And so if people want to build trust, that's something you're trying to do, show up well, show up right, and just be intentional about the message you're trying to send with the way you're dressed. There's no shame in that. That's kind of a smart thing.
Mm-hmm. So the second one you mentioned was motives and intentions. And what I was really curious about is it the words that we say, or is it how we say it? How is tone, conveying through tone, how does that play a role within that? When you think of the motives and intentions component of this, is it implicit or is it explicit?
Tone can make a big difference, but the whole foundation on building trust is about behavior. It's less about what you say. And I have this saying, your actions speak so loud, I can hardly hear what you're saying. To try to use just your words to build trust, well, it's a good idea if we say the right words. And inflection and all of that is important. But what really makes a difference is your actions, your behavior. I went out golfing with a guy, and he runs a large CPA firm, really sharp guy. His name's Michael. We're out golfing, and he dresses to the T anywhere. He's got a suit, white shirt, tie. We're out on the golf course now. He's not on the golf course that way, and we hit balls, and so this is a guy that goes ahead of all of us. He's a little bit better than maybe some of us, and he's finding everybody's lost golf ball that's in the rough. His behavior tells me tons about his intentions and his motives. He doesn't have to say a word. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I have a lot of respect for him, because if he does that in that area, what does he do in other areas? Leads over.
Yeah. So you mentioned respect. How does respect play a role within understanding trust? Are they different? Are they similar? How do you frame respect in comparison to trust?
Well, they're cousins. There's no doubt about that. You get respect because people trust you. You get respect because people see your behavior. Respect and trust are just cousins. They're very much the same. I respect you because of the way you think and the way you address issues, the way you talk. I respect you because of how you responded to adversities in life and how you showed me in those 5 different areas that you value something about your core values and what you're all about, how you treat others.
That makes sense. So when we look at the list of the 5 areas, for someone who, this is they're sitting here, they're listening to this, and they're going, Scott, I want to start being more intentional about building trust. Where do we start?
Well, understanding what those 5 areas are, and of course, get the book, get the book, and it will. I'm a big believer in processes. And when you can see what we're shooting for, then I can start hitting the target. But just saying, I'm going to build trust. Okay? In which area? In your motives, in your body language, in your expertise, and just pick one of those areas and go to work in it.
Is there one that's particularly easier for most folks?
I'm not sure that I can say one is easier than another. Some of that, again, depends on your personality. There are some people who, going out and getting a certification on a skill set is just easy for them to do. They're just into it. One of my daughters is a mechanical engineer. Well, I won't say that it was easy. And Mason, if you're listening to this, I'm not saying it was easy, but the point is she is a little more gifted in being able to do stuff like that, whereas somebody else, that's not. So that wouldn't be the place to start for them. You can start. You just have to be intentional about where trust is of those 5 areas, and then pick those 5 areas and do the things that build trust in each one of those.
When you look at the actual trust credit score, how does the score traditionally work? Is it easier for us to look internally and think, what's my credit score with someone else? Or is it more useful to look at what level of trust do I have with somebody else as kind of a starting point to understand the framework of how this works in real life?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I love to answer that one. So we have a person who's doing some work for us at our house, and we've had just some hairballs with our multimedia stuff here at the house, and it's like, well, I'm scoring that company on how I trust them. So that's when I pick this up and I say, okay, is their vibe on point? Is their body language, is it good? Well, yeah. I mean, the people that come to show up to do the work, it is clear that they're professionals at what they're doing. Now, that doesn't mean they're all dressed up, but they have a semblance of a uniform. But their body language is, they're very respectful. They know what they're doing. Number 2, their motives. They've made it very clear that their motives are to get me what I want through my multimedia. And one of them said, I told him, I said, Super Bowl's coming up, dude. And this is not working, and I need this working. And he looked at me, he said, I promise you, you will have Super Bowl to show at this house one way or another. Okay, so man, that intentions and motives, well, they scored a 10 right there. Are we on the same page with values? Well, just in the discussions that we have when they're here, so I'm scoring them. And looks like we're on the same page with values and owning their mistakes. They had a situation that was not me, it was their mistake, their machine. Oh, yikes, we've looked at that. I'm going to have to replace that thing. It's going to cost me a few $100s, but it's in your warranty. We're going to replace that. Okay, his score went up. Is he built for this skill set? Do you have the expertise? Are you kidding? I can barely use my phone. These guys are setting up Apple One, Apple Two, routers, extenders, and I'm just going, okay. I mean, you won, checkbox. You won that, and then what's their track record? So I'm asking people around the neighborhood and other people, and they have a good track record. They have an excellent track record with me, because though we've had several problems, they come out and they fix the problems. This is something really important, Tanner. Trust is not concrete. It is fluid all the time. Just like your FICA financial credit score is fluid with how you manage your debt, pay your bills, what cash you have, so is your trust credit score. It's earned in drops, lost in buckets. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I use it to score others so that I can know what's going on. But then I use it for me. Okay, Scott, how you coming across here?
I really like the story and the understanding of how to think about this in the context of a real life situation. I tend to probably err on the side of it's easier to use something like this in the context of somebody else first before being able to be true self-reflection. Just understanding the framework and self-reflection is not always the easiest thing. I really like that, and I think it's a powerful way for someone to start thinking through, how do I have trust with others before starting to think about it for me? But I know you've worked with.
Hold on just a minute.
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Please.
I would recommend that if you're really curious about how people seeing me, Get one of these scorecards and give it to somebody that you trust their opinion, and say, I want you to, on the job, on this project, I want you to score me. Kind of tell me where I am, because somebody told me once, and it wasn't very long ago, I love this saying, you can't read your own label from inside the jar. Somebody else has to get out there and read the label for you. So give it to somebody you trust and say, score me. Not your wife, not your children, somebody else.
Well, you can give it to your wife and children. It's just maybe a very different answer, huh?
Maybe.
Oh my goodness, I love that so much. That's such a powerful saying, and I would definitely tend to agree with that. So when you work with business owners, and you work in large companies, small companies, things like that, can you share a story of when kind of rebuilding trust completely changed the game for a business that you've worked with?
Yeah, you bet. I had a chance. A technology company contacted me about the trust credit score. As a matter of fact, he heard me speak for just a few minutes, and after the meeting, he came to me and he said, I want this at my company. I said, okay. And we set up a time. And his situation was, he was hoping that we get everybody in one place, but their company is spread out around 3 or 4 states, so we did it virtual. And they only wanted to do like 90 minutes at a time. Well, there's 3 90-minute sessions. And so he told me, he said, we, for a variety of reasons, we're a technology company, but we really cratered our trust a while back with some people and internally, and said, so I know that we need this. And guy's a great guy, super ethical. So anyway, we started on the presentation, and just by getting people the vocabulary of what trust is all about, and that it's like the confidence that people have in your character and in your expertise, and then the 5 areas, just that goes a long way to give people the ability to discuss it and to be able to point it out. Something was off. Now I know where it was off. So we did the first 90 minutes. And then, I don't know, a week later, 2 weeks later, I came back to do the second 90 minutes. And while we were, not everybody was there, I said, so tell me how it's going. Did we leave any traction last week? And he said, are you kidding? Said, all these guys, gals, they're talking about the trust credit score all the last week. I mean, it's just kind of filled. It's not all they talk about, but they're talking about it. And I went, yes, because that's what it did. It just gives you a way to describe what you can't put your finger on. So we went through the rest of it, and one of the people in that team, it was, I think, a team of 8 or 9 people, one of them has already sent me 2 or 3 referrals because they loved it and what it did for them. It gave them a handle to build trust with people. And that's what I like. I love that kind of stuff.
That's amazing. And not to mention that's almost a dual story. It's the story of their ability to see and put their finger on trust within the company. But that's a big testament to the trust that they've built with you or you've built with them.
Yeah.
In that story alone, track record, expertise, motives, and intention. Obviously, I can't see body language from a story that you've told before, but I can hear these threads between what you teach and what you've shared in the book, and even the stories of how this is playing out in real life. I'm curious. I kind of want to shift a little bit to online presence, but now moving away from face-to-face meetings like this, but as the world continues to develop, video is not going away. More business is going to be done online. The advent of AI is only going to cause potentially some additional confusion into what's authentic and what's not. Trust is going to be a really big piece of this. How do we convey trust, or how do we use these 5 areas in this framework to convey the same type of message in our marketing, in our video content, in different ways that we come across online, knowing that people are going to search us?
A lot of people are asking that very question. and we are attempting in a variety of ways to solve that. It's my understanding, and this AI thing is such a sharp curve up. I mean, it's going so fast. But for a while, they had things out there where somebody would put something online, and there were different filters that could read immediately and say, "Oh, this was built by AI. This is, you need to know that." Well, now nobody cares because everybody knows that stuff that they're putting on. Well, where'd you get that? Well, I got it from AI. Well, where else would I have gotten it? I couldn't be that smart. And so people are putting a lot of stuff in it. And I think that over a period of time, we still have to see behavior, a track record. On this trust credit score, nobody gets more than a 9 until I've known you for a while, because it's behavior. I want to see the behavior. Can you deliver on all those points multiple times? And when I see a repeated behavior, then you can go from an 8 or a 9 into a 10. But it just takes time. I can't fix that.
Yeah, it's kind of been the interest of mine to see how some of this can be playing out. And this is kind of leading us to a question I really like to ask kind of on the Ownership Advantage podcast, and just get different industries and different individuals' takes on where AI is going overall. So to kind of frame this up, before I get to the core part of this question, thinking about the authenticity and knowing that there's going to be a lot more of AI videos, things like that, it'll be very difficult to distinguish what's real and what's not real. I'm becoming a firm believer that we're going to go back to doing a lot of business in person again, which will be really cool. And then the body language, motives, intention, all these different areas that you're sharing with us today become that much more critical as we navigate this world of both, here's what you see online before you come see me, and now I get to meet you in person, and you've already got some expectations. How do I continue to live up to them, or potentially have to reframe or rebuild if it maybe wasn't the best first impression?
That's a real deal. I mean, that is a real deal. People can pretend to be something, and then when they have to deliver the goods, you're not what I thought you were. There's a country song that says, "I look better online." And people put their high school picture up there. This is not my high school picture. That authenticity, people are really going to be looking for, because they want to know the real person that's off camera and just face to face. What can I expect? Because part of what proves it is when issues come up. And the issues are what help us to decide and confirm and understand what kind of person we're really talking to. They say, an old saying, smooth seas don't make great sailors. Rough seas are what make great sailors, because they have to navigate and pivot. And that's when your trust and your credit score really shines, because now the real you starts coming out.
I really like that. So when you look at AI specifically, is there anything that you're doing to prepare or learn a bit more about to navigate through what is yet to come that we don't quite know yet? But the fact that it's moving so fast, I think it's undeniable to refute that there's definitely this AI revolution that's upon us. How do you frame it? How do you see it? Is there anything that you're doing currently that will help you kind of navigate through the future of this?
Absolutely. And I'm a proponent of something that I'm doing personally. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a baby boomer. I'm not a millennial. I'm not a Gen Z. I'm a baby boomer. And my vocabulary, everything that I say, it gives me away, because I'm a baby boomer. When I wrote the book and when I went through different chapters and different parts of it, I would put it into ChatGPT AI, and I would say, write this in millennial voice.
Ooh.
Because millennials are who I'm going after. My generation is all but gone as far as the business world is concerned. 5 years, the baby boomers won't even be here. And so I'm writing my stuff and trying to get my vocabulary in more of a millennial voice so that they'll listen to what I have to say. The truth is still there, but the truth is that voice and how we talk, the references that we use, turn people off or turn people on to pay attention. And so I use AI not to change who I am, but to put what I say in a voice that a group of people will listen to. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that's authentic?
I personally, I do. And there's a couple of reasons for it. The first one is the content and the message in an example like that remains virtually unchanged. I would agree with you that different demographics, different generations, different cultural differences, things like that are all going to receive messages differently. If we can speak in their tone, that's going to help the message and the purpose of why we would write or share information. It helps us convey that message in a way that they can receive it. So personally, I think yes. The other kind of side of that coin on why that's my personal belief is because I have played with a lot of the AI tools, and it's amazing how accurate some of them can be with tone and writing style and things like that when they're trained a bunch. Yes. I always tell this story because I think it's hilarious. I have yet to find many other people that have done this yet, at least in these types of conversations. But on ChatGPT, as an example, I usually will ask individuals, hey, have you ever run out of memory? They're like, what do you mean? You can run out of memory? Like, yes. You can feed it enough information, it'll eventually run out of memory. Even on the paid plans.
I ran out of memory.
I've run out about 5 times and have had to start back over or remove some things and choose what it's still remembering, that sort of thing. But it's amazing when you go through that process to see how much of a extension of you it can be. Not fully replicable, things like that. So that's my reasoning on why I believe that there is still some authenticity with that, if used correctly. And I think the example you gave is essentially that. It's how do I convey this message for more people to get this message across? Yeah.
Anybody who knows me and reads my book will say, oh, this is you. And it is me. There's something else that I just thought of. Remember what my background is? What's my background?
Which part?
Theology.
Theology piece?
Theology.
Yes. Okay.
Theology. We all used to read the King James Version.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anybody who's reading the King James Version now? Most are reading NIV. There's one called the Message. There's another one called the English Standard Version, which is the one I like the most. Same message, but in a different tone that different age levels and groups can understand. Mm-hmm. So I grew up around that.
Yeah.
It is true. It works.
Oh, man. I love that so much. What I don't think you know about me is I thought that was going to be my path. I actually went to school, started a major in religion, ended up leaving it as a minor, thought I was going to go off to seminary. So had done a lot of similar studies and things like that, and very familiar with different iterations of the same message being portrayed differently based on how the text was written, how it was transcribed, translated, all sorts of different things like that. But same story, same message.
Yeah.
So I love that. So as we start to kind of wrap up the conversation, Scott, I've got a couple of questions I'd love to ask you. I think we'll just draw out a few additional kind of wisdom nuggets for the audience here. The first one's on advice, and I'd love to know kind of what's the most impactful or memorable piece of advice that you've received.
The advice that I quote the most is when I was, I guess I must have been a teenager. Maybe I was in my 20s. I don't remember. But my dad gave me some advice. Best advice. He said, if you want to be an electrician, don't go to a plumber and ask them how to do it. Go to the people who have what you want and ask them how they got there. I have never forgotten that. And sometimes people offer me advice, and I just look and see and say, are you where I want to be going? And that doesn't mean that I won't take what they have to say, but I find the people who have what I want, and I ask, how did you get there? And that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I live by.
That piece of advice might be one of the most important pieces of advice for today's day and age. It's so easy to take advice from people who have never been there, never done that, don't live the life that you want. Remembering that small piece, I'm writing that one down and will continue to take that one with me. So I appreciate you sharing that one.
You're welcome.
Other than your book, what is the book that you tend to either recommend or give as a gift most frequently?
Oh boy, that's a good one. I joined a book mastermind about 7 years ago, and over the course of those 7 years, we went through, a dozen and a half books. It's hard for me to pick one. I will have to say one of the books that changed me the most was 7 Habits by Stephen Covey. That book gave me a lot of help. One of the biggest things about that book was the word proactive. And proactive taught me that I'm not supposed to sit around and wait for things. Matter of fact, my favorite saying is, things may come to those who want, but only what's left behind by those who hustle. And learning to be proactive was a game changer. But then there's another one by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference. And that is a great book because it talks to you about negotiation. John Maxwell's written so many books, and a lot of those are great. One of the best ones of those, they're good for me and where I was the 360 Leader. And the thing that I learned about that was you can lead from the middle of the pack. I don't have to have the title. And that turned me on to the word of being an influencer. I am more interested in being an influencer than I am having a title, because I don't have to have a title to influence. So I'm not sure if I helped you much on that one, but there's some other really good ones. Think and Grow Rich. It took us a whole year to go through that one. That's a great book.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So that's like a annual read. Got to always go back. There's always something else that you can take out of that one. Yeah. Well, that's probably the case of a lot of these books. But no, those are fantastic recommendations. I know we could sit here and create a massive list, but I think the most important piece for the listeners here is there's one very specific book that, after listening to this conversation, if you have not picked up a copy yet, you need to go pick up that copy. And that is this book right here, Can I Trust You? So Scott, where can the audience go to find the book, to learn more about you, to follow the work that you continue to put out there? Where can we advise the audience to go?
You can go to Amazon or any of those places and find Can I Trust You and buy the book there. Or you can go to my website and, scottcarley.com, and you'll find a lot of stuff there about how I help people push their big, scary, audacious dreams across the finish line. And we do that by helping you build trust. And when you build your trust credit score, doors open. And if you don't, then people pull back.
Well, I love that, Scott. I appreciate so much that you've joined us here today and we're willing to share a bit of the story about yourself and your journey, about the trust credit score, and give us that framework. I think there's a lot of amazing nuggets from this conversation today. Highly encourage everyone who's listening here today to go and grab a copy of the book, read through it, study it, use it. I think that's probably the biggest piece is, with these types of books, these types of stories, action really does matter. Use it, study it, and continue to have that on your shelf as a core read every year. So Scott, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, you're welcome. And Tanner, I love your message here. I love what you're doing. You are empowering so many people, helping so many people, getting the word out about where they can find help. And that raises your trust credit score. because you're being genuine and honest and offering things that really move the needle. And that's what we want to do, is move the needle. So thank you. It's been a great pleasure being your guest today.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Scott.